Hello, George, Pat Ninja Food Forest. If you're not familiar, worm composting systems, a way to make simple, safe, at-home compost when we don't have those large volumes that we can deal with. I'm going to be on the ASAP farm tour this weekend. I'm going to be at Ruby Ranch on Saturday, and I'll be at Well Seasoned Table on Sunday, and I'll have these systems available. You can always just look me up as well if you don't make it out there this weekend. But I'm getting a few more ready for this weekend. I've got a couple that are ready here just to show you what they are. I've used a lot of systems over the years. I don't necessarily use this anymore because I have a worm breeding system, a large composting system, but I used it for 15 years. I use this larger 27-gallon bin. We just have a few options. So this 2-bin system, there's just 2 of these totes that fit inside one another. We drill holes. You don't necessarily have to do them along the side. I do 1 row along the side in the bottom so that it fits inside of this one. We take our worms and our compost and we build this up in here until it's half or 3/4 full. Then we start feeding the top one. What will happen is the worms in the bottom are going to run out of food. As they do, they're going to search out that food in the top bin and they'll harvest themselves. So I call this a 2-bin self-harvesting system. As they harvest themselves, you take the other bin out. You harvest these castings and use them. As this gets filled up again, you just start that process over with a new bin. Again, I have multiple sizes here. That one we looked at was a 5-gallon. Another 5-gallon, different shape. These are the 27 gallons. So this is a 16-gallon, 27-gallon. Same thing, holes in the bottom. See those well, there you go. And a few in the sides. Then I sell the complete system. You can make these yourself and just buy the worms from me. What I do is I offer that with this in there as well. This got about a half pound of worms in here. Tremendous amount of worms in here. But it's also got 2 other things. They've been breeding in here for a few weeks. There's going to be up to 1,000 cocoons. Each of those cocoons is going to have 4 worms in it. So there's a cocoon right there. You can see it. Right there. Oh, it fell down. There it is. There's another one. Right there. I can't see past my hand. Yeah, you can see it. So they're all over in there, these cocoons. There's a good look at the cocoon right there. So there's going to be up to 1,000 of those in this worm bedding already. The other thing we're getting is just a tremendous amount of that soil food web already. The bacteria and the fungi, the decomposers, the low end of it, the tiny little guys. The protozoa above those. The microarthropods, look like you can see them on our microscope. They're like miniature spiders, things like that. The nematodes, there's 5 types of nematodes. We'll probably want 1 in here, a bacterial feeder. But there's going to be a ton of that diversity of life and a multitude of species within those. Multitude of variety within those. I'm going to get my phylums going. If you buy one of these systems that I make, or drill it yourself, and we dump this in there. When I first bought worms, it was by the pound, and it works fine. And you take ripped up shredded cardboard, wetted cardboard, and you put it in there, and they start feeding on that. You start them in one corner, and that's the way I sold them originally too. And then you put food in one corner, food in another corner a week later, and so on, all 4 corners. That way they've crawled all over the bedding, but it takes a long time to inoculate that bedding. When I say inoculate, it's what's in this. And that's that bacteria and fungi, that soil food web. The bacteria and fungi down low on it, the decomposers, they're breaking all this down. But along with that, this is a wonderful compost we have. We look under a microscope, we test it. It's got a bunch of the next levels in there. The protozoa that feed on the bacteria and the fungi and on each other. The microarthropods, the nematodes. We even look in here and see creepy crawlies all over the place. There's millipedes and centipedes. They're also helping break it down, giving us a fungal compost. So back to these bins. We take this, put it in one of those bins. From there, partially full. We just start adding food scraps on top of that. That's going to be our nitrogen. Any compost pile wants nitrogen and carbon. So take wetted cardboard. Could use peat moss. I don't agree with it. Shredded leaves. I use wood chips. Something to cover that. Then as they feed, they're going to run out of food and you'll feed on top again. Just keep doing those layers, so like a layer garden. And they'll work their way up through feeding on that. When it's almost full, we add that second bin and feed on up through. Repeating myself. That's when we harvest the bottom. For people that do purchase these systems, there will be a few worms left in the bottom. I make a couple of piles at that point, let them set for a few minutes, and all those worms will gather right under the top. You take that cap off and they'll be waiting and put them in. If they are still in here and you're using the compost, great, they can go in your garden system. Okay, back to the bins themselves. It really is just as simple as picking a pattern on the bottom, remembering we don't want microplastics all over the place, so use something to catch the plastic. I have a drill bit with a stop, so that's nice for me, but you can just use an 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch drill bit. 1/4 is a little big, 1/8 is fine, 3/16. And I make them about 3 to 6 inches 3 to 6 inches apart, depending on the size of the vessel. Here we go. Here's the bottom. And then we repeat it. On the system. There's two lids. So they stay in there with no holes. You shouldn't get moisture out the bottom, but for any worms that might crawl out, or if you do use too much water, and we get that leachate out the bottom, it'll catch it. If you do get that leachate and you want to use it in your garden, it's fine to use, but you want to dilute that at least 20 to 1 or more. It's going to be very anaerobic, have some bad guys in there. Lots of good stuff in there too, but if you're going to use it, make sure to dilute it. I'd say if you're getting leachate, make sure you don't put as much moisture in here. I don't water my worm bins really at all. If I notice it's dry, I will. Generally, just gets it from the vegetable scraps. So there's a bin on the bottom. That fits in there nicely. First bin we fill. Top bin has a lid. Store it in there nicely, just that we don't do something with it until it's halfway full. Then you'll start feeding the top bin and continuing on up. So it won't take long once you start feeding that top bin for them to finish the food that's in there and move on up through. I won't give it an exact time, but after 2 weeks, you could look for sure. Depending on the amount of food scraps you have, again, you can buy one of these 12-gallon, one of these 5-gallon, the 15-gallon, the 27-gallon. You could use 2 5-gallon buckets. You can use any tote you have. The cost of this, I think I charge maybe $10 labor for me to what you saw what I did. I don't charge much. I had in the $10, $12 for these, depending on the price and the cost of the worms. So, a safe, easy way of home composting where we don't have to worry about everything getting up to temperature, killing all those disease pathogens. We don't want those in our garden. Any of those weed seeds that might have made it in there that might spread all over our garden. Instead, that goes through a worm system. We don't rely on that temperature, so we don't need that size of that pile. We just need to make sure it's well broken down through a worm system. So we put it in here. That soil food web I talked about, it starts breaking it down. The bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa. After it becomes broken down, the worms consume it. They don't have teeth. It goes through the worm system, so when you get the castings, you know they've gone through a worm system. You know that's all been changed into a wonderful, it's a high bacterial, so I use wood chips in there, but still it's black gold. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Ours is some of the best. It goes through a real long system here. But you do the same thing at your house, but with this. Don't rush it. Take your time with it. Harvest it when it's ready. I'm getting wet. I'm George, Fat Ninja Food Forest. Change to be better on the holiday. Peace. Then you use your castings. Feed your food forest. I left the gate open. Sister's in the pond. Where's Blue? I know she's in there with you. You see the dragonflies and the bees, bumblebees. The bird and the beans are here. There's just so much life when we let it go. We let every one of those niches be filled. Worm castings. I'm George. Hopefully we'll see you this weekend at Ruby Ranch or at Well Seasoned Table. If not, let us know. We've always got them available. Change to be better than a holiday and long overdue. No fascists.